Welcome everyone. My name is Sean, and today we got to talk about the latest updates in the migrant crisis because the governor of Illinois, Pritzker, has decided to go on the air and beg Texas governor to give up, to relent, to stop sending the migrants to his home state, stop sending them to the city of Chicago, despite all the talk before about how Illinois was a sanctuary state, Chicago was a sanctuary city. Now that he actually has to pay the bill for those migrants, all of a sudden, it's actually a crime to send the migrants to him, even though he asked for them. But before we get into these latest updates, I just want to say thank you to everybody who signed up on actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And thank you to the podcast listeners, Spotify, Apple, and Google's podcasting platform. All right, so let's recap really quickly so we know how we got here, so we could talk about this latest change in terms of the reaction to the migrants being sent to left-wing cities. So, first and foremost, for decades in this country, many cities declared themselves sanctuary cities. These are places that when somebody is arrested, they will not check their immigration status, they will not work with the federal government in order to deport people who are illegal immigrants, and that has been a thing that has been in our country for a very long time. Fast forward to 2016, the evil orange man gets elected president. He runs on a platform of dealing with illegal immigration, so a bunch of left-wing cities passed additional executive orders or ordinances to say that they're ultra welcoming to migrants and that the evil orange man is an evil white racist and they won't stand for evil white racism. Included in those cities happens to be the city of Chicago, where then Mayor Lori Lightfoot signed what is known as the welcoming ordinance that said that Chicago was definitely welcome to all the illegal migrants, commit asylum fraud at the border, and get your butt over here because we'll take care of you and we'll give you welfare benefits. Well, guess what? This was easy to do when Chicago is in Illinois and it's extremely far from the southern border, and obviously it's great to flex and virtue signal when you never have to live up to it, but the Texas governor decided that he was going to call them on their bluff because Biden got elected president. He started letting people surge to the border. Immigration cases have gotten completely out of hand. All of these people are claiming asylum. The overwhelming majority of those asylum claims are in fact fraudulent. We don't have Remain in Mexico still in place, so he started shipping them to places like Chicago, and immediately those places started declaring states of emergency.
It's the same right-wing extremism that refuses to accept the results of the Civil War. Right? This is the same political party that did not want to accept that President Obama was actually an American. It's the same Republican right-wing extremism that stormed the Capitol.
Now, we talked a lot about Brandon Johnson's reaction to this. The fact that he's calling the Texas governor an evil white racist. The fact that he's saying that this is revenge for something that happened 400 years ago, which is a slavery reference because, of course, it's about slavery.
It is abysmal, and it's an affront for everything that is good about this country. For the extremism in this country to use people as political tools to settle political scores for something that happened 400 years ago. They're still mad that a black man is free in this country.
The fact that apparently the Texas governor is angry about losing the Civil War, which, by the way, the Texas governor is a Republican, the mayor of Chicago is a Democrat, so technically the Civil War was lost by the Democrats, but apparently there's a grievance from the Texas governor, and he's just angry that a black man like Brandon Johnson is free, because we all know that when the city of Chicago signed that ordinance asking for migrants, saying that they were welcoming to migrants, bring them all in, doing so, actually expecting them to follow through on those asks, is actually evil white racism. Now, thankfully, the Texas governor did not relent in shipping the migrants to the city of Chicago. He did not care that Brandon Johnson was going to call him racist, because left-wing progressives like Brandon Johnson are going to call you racist no matter what you do, so you might as well stand up for what you believe in against scumbags like this. So he continued to bust the migrants there, and Brandon Johnson pretended like he was not going to relent while he quietly started cutting benefits and perks for the migrants, and started visiting the southern border with an alderman not to welcome migrants, but to scare them off from coming, despite what he says in this particular clip.
Look, Pastor Will Hall, who's also an alderman of the 6th Ward, visited the border. He saw the chaos firsthand. And so part of our effort to go to the border was to make sure that there was better coordination with the flow of migrants who are seeking asylum here.
Now, when we go to the very same alderman that Brendan Johnson said was trying to coordinate a welcoming response for the migrants, he said that he actually told the migrants that they're going to be sleeping on the street in the snow and there's no more room in the city of Chicago.
So people are beginning to get informed that it's cold, the opportunities are scarce, and that unless you want to sleep on a concrete mattress, don't come. And that's what those who have come seeking asylum have said.
Now, of course, when those tactics failed, when lying to the public about what you were actually doing did not work, it did not stem the flow of migrants, Brendan Johnson decided that it was time to close the border. Just not the United States border. He decided that he wanted to close the border of Chicago, and he started suing bus companies and requiring them to have permits in order to drop off migrants within the city limits. He also designated specific times and threatened to tow the buses and fine them per illegal immigrant that they brought into the city, while still pretending to be welcoming to migrants. But my favorite part about the requests that the mayor of Chicago made is that he wanted to be sure that we knew exactly who was coming, so he demanded a detailed manifest giving him all the information on the people that were coming into his city, which is hilarious, because if only we could have this information for people coming in through our southern border, but we can't have it because people like Brandon Johnson and people in the Democratic Party think that having such demands, such border controls for the United States of America is evil white racism, but apparently, despite the fact that there is no constitutional basis to do this, doing so for Chicago is not evil white racism.
Yeah, what we know is, as I've said repeatedly, the governor of Texas is determined to create chaos throughout the entire country. And this is after the city council passed an ordinance that I put forward to provide more structure, to provide more calm and some more coordination with how buses are arriving in the city of Chicago. And quite frankly, what's actually quite disturbing is that many of the individuals who are coming from the border, there's no coordination at the border either. So many of the individuals are not being treated, they're not being processed, they're not getting medical attention. So by the time they arrive in the city of Chicago, they're coming in quite severe conditions: cold, tired, wet, hungry, traumatized. The type of chaos that this governor is insistent on creating throughout this entire country. And so we've put forth very clear guidelines. You can drop families off. Buses can come to the city of Chicago between these particular hours. We have to have a 48-hour notice. We need a full manifest. We need to know who is on the bus, the conditions in which these individuals are arriving in, so that we can provide the type of care that's needed.
Now, Greg Abbott responded by flying the migrants into O'Hare Airport. The mayor of Chicago is not in control over the skies. The FAA is. And he responded by dropping them off in the suburbs outside of the city limits of the city of Chicago so that they could make their way on their own into the interior as a way to subvert the illegal and unconstitutional ordinance that Brandon Johnson passed in order to close his border. Well, now that they're in the suburbs and outside of the city limits, this has become a broader problem for the state of Illinois, who, by the way, is in fact paying a large portion of the welfare benefits to these migrants. So Governor Pritzker is absolutely pissed about this. He's angry, and he, unlike Brandon Johnson, is not about trying to save face as much. So he actually went on ABC News to talk about the problem of the southern border and basically say that they've been privately begging Greg Abbott to stop sending the migrants. They don't want the migrants. The migrants are hurting the state of Illinois. They're hurting the city of Chicago, and all the things that they swore were evil white racism before, when Texas Governor Greg Abbott and other border state politicians were bringing them up for decades.
And we don't have much time left, but one issue that is clearly hurting Democrats is the situation at the border. A recent CBS poll found that 68% disapprove of the president's handling. Whatever you think of that, there's clearly a problem at the border. I know you have advocated for stronger action from the federal government on dealing with this crisis. How does the president address this going forward?
Well, we need the Congress to act. There is discussion right now about comprehensive immigration reform, about border security, and this can be handled right now. They could vote on this and make sure that we're actually dealing with it. But, Democrats have been at the table for decades now wanting immigration reform. Republicans have refused. So finally, they're at least in discussion. My hope is that they'll get something done.
So right off the bat, we get the standard answer that we would expect from a Democratic Party politician, and that is, oh, Democrats, we've been at the table talking about immigration reform for a long time, but the Republicans Republicans, those gosh darn obstructionists, they don't want to make a deal. They don't want to solve the problem. Meanwhile, there was no funding put forward for the wall during the Trump administration. They called everything that he wanted to institute, including the sensible Remain in Mexico policy, evil white racism, and they had all these performative stunts where they would go and cry in front of parking lots in order to paint evil orange man as evil white racism. They brought up the kids in cages and whatnot, ignoring the fact that most of their photos were from the Obama administration. Also, none of them are talking about the migrants in detention facilities under the Biden administration, because it was all a political football for the left as well. Not saying that the right hasn't played politics with immigration. Of course they had. They're politicians. That's what they do. But I just want to give you the standard line from the governor before he goes a little bit off script.
But not enough has been done. There's no doubt about that. And I think that the president needs to do more. The Congress needs to do more. Cities out here that are the target of this political game that Governor Abbott is playing are suffering.
So this is where things get interesting. Now, I have said quite clearly that Texas Governor Greg Abbott is in fact engaged in a political stunt. And by the way, political stunts can be good. This one in particular is smart. It is well executed. But it needs to be noted that most of the migrants aren't actually being sent by Texas Governor Greg Abbott. They want to go to Chicago. They want to go to New York City. They want to go to Denver because they are aware of the fact that they get better benefits from those locations. Those are better promise. And in fact, one of the most guilty people of shipping migrants to these different locations is the Democratic mayor of El Paso, and a lot of people don't want to talk about that, but the fact of the matter is these migrants are voluntarily going there, and a Democrat is one of the chief shippers of them there because that Democratic mayor doesn't want this problem either. But it is funny that this is considered like an attack and how the city of Chicago is suffering from all this. Well, you're the ones in the city of Chicago who passed a welcoming ordinance saying that you wanted the migrants. So isn't that interesting that when you get what you asked for, all of a sudden you're suffering so hard? All of a sudden asking you to live up to what you decided to announce to the world that you wanted is a crime against you.
And here in Illinois, it's minus 29 degrees outside with a wind chill. We have migrants that arrive from Texas virtually every day, hundreds, and we don't have places to put them. We don't have enough shelter space here. There are plenty of other cities where, you know, if he's going to send people, they could be sent. But no, he's choosing only Democratic states, Democratic cities.
So now you have Pritzker saying, oh, the weather's so bad, it's so cold and whatnot. And we covered, by the way, the fact that the migrants are not happy with the weather. And a lot of them say that they would want to go back to Venezuela, which is interesting because they're claiming asylum, saying that they are under threat of death from the Venezuelan government. That's what asylum is supposed to mean. Yet a little bit of cold weather makes them want to go back to that threat of death, which shows you that these are fraudulent claims, by the way. But he's saying, oh, he's sending them to Democratic cities when there's plenty of other cities that he could be sending them to. Let's be clear. Your city asked for them. Your city said that they wanted them. Your city said that the diversity from the illegal immigrants would enrich your city. So you're getting what you asked for. If you want to know why certain Democratic cities are getting these migrants, it's because they passed ordinances saying that they wanted those migrants. They attacked out of nowhere Texas Governor Greg Abbott when he brought up these issues to the federal government for years and years and years. They attacked border states for years and years when they brought up these issues. And now all of these border states have decided, well, if you want these migrants, if you think they're so great, we don't want them, so you take them. So now that you're getting what you want, all of a sudden it's a problem. All of a sudden there's all these other cities that you could send them to. All of a sudden, oh my God, how can you expect us to live up to our own values?
And when we've asked him to stop sending people because of the weather, because of the dangerous nature of this winter storm that we're experiencing now, he's refused to stop sending them.
So I love that. He said, okay, listen, I don't want you to be sending migrants over here because it's cold. We're trying to prevent the migrants from coming here because it's minus 29 with the wind chill in the city of Chicago. So please stop sending them. Now, to be clear, they've said that they don't want the migrants any time of year. They've been complaining about it for months, but this way Pritzker can cover up the fact that he's trying to paint Texas Governor Greg Abbott as the cruel one and whatnot, when in reality, what's actually cruel is our border policy that incentivizes migrants to take a dangerous journey throughout all of Latin America, partner up with cartels in order to make the trip, and then end up at our border when we don't have the resources to take care of them. And you know who is incentivizing that? You know who is messaging for years under the administration of the evil orange man? Cities like the city of Chicago, states like the state of Illinois, cities like the city of New York, states like New York State, cities like Denver, and other progressive utopias across the country. You ask for these migrants. You take the migrants. You take them until you can go to the Biden administration and get some damn border enforcement for the problem that you demanded, that you thought was no big deal when it was impacting someone else, because we're not sympathetic to you or the fact that your budget's going to go completely out of whack.
So he does not care about people. He doesn't care about the migrants. He doesn't care about the fact that they're going to suffer if they're sent to certainly the upper Midwest, as he is doing now.
And spare me this idea that Texas Governor Greg Abbott is so cruel, so mean, and doesn't care about people. You never cared about any of the people in any of those border towns. You never cared about the migrant crisis. You denied that the crisis existed. People forget about this because at this point in time, Biden's numbers are tanking due to the border. But the original strategy of the left wing was to deny that this was even an issue in the United States of America. Under the Trump administration, they said caravan was a racist dog whistle and that there were no caravans of illegals coming to the border. But now that you can't deny it, you're just trying to shift blame to the Texas governor, who, by the way, wants to enforce the border in his own state, but is currently being sued by the federal government for even attempting to do so. So until you want to correct what's going on in your party, in your federal government, that you back, you're on the Biden campaign team in Illinois, if you guys aren't aware, then I don't want to hear any nonsense from you about how cruel the Texas governor is. So yeah, once again, the latest update is in fact that the Democrats don't want to live up to their own values. They don't want to live up to their own policies, and they think it's evil white racism for you to ask them to live up to their own principles. But hey, those are just my thoughts related to this situation. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the Illinois governor crying about migrants. Till next time.